What happens when a voice like that, I mean, an angelic voice, Oprah even called it the voice of God. What happens when it's just tragically silent, right at the peak of its power?
Yeah, it's a question that really hits hard, doesn't it? Because Whitney Houston, well, few singers, few pop divas ever had a voice quite like hers. So glorious, so sweeping.
That range, the charisma.
Yeah.
She was just this incredibly glamorous superstar.
Absolutely. One of the most talented, truly.
And that's really the heart of our deep dive today, isn't it? We want to unpack all those layers of Whitney Houston's life. It was extraordinary. Right. We've got sources, including a really detailed YouTube transcript, and we're going to try and pull out the key insights, maybe some surprising facts too.
Yeah.
Understand that mix of, well, immense talent, the pressures of fame, and those personal demons.
That interplay is crucial. Her journey, it defines so much.
Exactly. We'll look at the groundbreaking stuff she did, the paradoxes, really, between her public image and private life, and, of course, the legacy she left behind.
A legacy that's still so strong, even though her journey, like you said, it ended way too soon. February 12th, 2012.
God, yeah. Found dead at the Beverly Hilton Hotel. She was only 48.
Just 48. The news, I mean, it sent shockwaves everywhere, didn't it?
Completely. Initial speculation was all over the place, but the toxicology reports, they eventually confirmed she died submerged in the bath.
Right, in her suite there. The official cause was accidental drowning, but complicated by heart disease and, well, prescription drug use.
For someone so young, still such a legend. It was just incredibly shocking, heartbreaking, really, for Hollywood, for everyone.
And you look back at her beginnings, it almost felt like her path was, well, destined for music. It was just woven into who she was from day one.
That lineage, it's staggering.
That's incredible, right? Her mother, Cissy Houston, the gospel singer, godmother, Aretha Franklin, cousins Dee Dee and Dionne Warwick. I mean,
she literally grew up with music all her life, surrounded by greats like Chaka Khan, too.
Exactly. And singing solos in church by age 11.
Wow, 11. And it's striking, isn't it, how her life is kind of framed by those two devotional songs.
Yeah, that first one at 11, Guide Me, O Thou Great Jehovah.
Right, at Catholic school. And her very last performance was Jesus Love.
That spiritual bookend, it really hints at something deeper, doesn't it? Faith, maybe inner conflict later on with everything else.
How do you think that upbringing, that deep spirituality, how did it shape her dealing with fame? Or maybe the pressure that came with it?
That's a really good question. I think that foundation, it gave her immense strength, for sure. But maybe later it became a source of like intense internal conflict. You know, the sacred versus the secular demands of being a pop megastar.
Makes sense.
But it wasn't just the music, was it? Whitney was also, I mean, stunningly beautiful as a young woman.
Oh, absolutely heart-stoppingly beautiful, which led her down that whole other path, model.
And it wasn't just a side thing either. She was breaking racial barriers there, too. First African-American young woman on the cover of 17 magazine.
That's huge. An achievement that, like the source said, had nothing to do with her voice. It was all about her looks, her presence, a barrier breaker even before the singing took off.
Totally. And it was around then, during that modeling time, that she met Robin Crawford.
Right, at summer camp. They became inseparable. Whitney called her the sister she never had.
A really deep bond. But that closeness also fueled those rumors, the ones about her being bisexual, which were pretty widely known in show business circles.
Yeah, those rumors kind of followed her throughout her life, didn't they?
They did, but the music breakthrough, that really kicked off around 1983.
Okay, so how did that happen?
Well, she was discovered by Jerry Griffith from Arista Records, saw her perform in a club, tipped off Clive Davis.
Clive Davis.
Yeah, and Davis just knew immediately. He became her mentor, really guided her career right from the start all the way through. His belief, his strategy, absolutely crucial.
And when she hit the scene, that voice, it just grabbed everyone. Someone said, before the invention of auto-tune, there was Whitney Houston.
That's such a great line because it's so true.
When you think about music now, all the tech, how does that help us appreciate just how raw and powerful her early vocals were?
It's critical. Her voice wasn't just strong. It was pure. It was precise, emotionally, right there. No digital help needed. That 5-octave range.
Effortless control.
It was just this undeniable gift. And that first album, Whitney Houston, in '85, it wasn't just a hit. It was a phenomenon.
14 weeks non-consecutive at the top of the U.S. charts.
Exactly. It basically reshaped the whole landscape for Black female artists in mainstream pop. Showed that a voice like that could dominate all the charts, no compromise.
And the hits just kept coming from that album. You Give Good Love was a great start.
Then Saving All My Love for You, that ballad kind of jazzy cabaret feel.
And the backstory on that one is interesting too, isn't it? The rumor about Jermaine Jackson.
Yeah, that came out later, after her death, that it was supposedly inspired by this year-long affair she had with Jermaine while he was married.
Right.
Adds a whole other layer to the song, you know.
Definitely some dramatic irony there.
And then The Greatest Love of All.
Ah,
That really became one of her defining early songs. She even named a tour after it.
such a powerful anthem.
But the irony, the deep irony is the message, right? Learning to love yourself, which is something Whitney sadly seemed to struggle with her whole life.
That is. Yeah, that's incredibly poignant. A real paradox right there.
Mm-hmm.
But musically, she kept climbing. The next single, How Will I Know, that was the one that just exploded into the mainstream.
Oh yeah, a total smash hit. And more than that, it was the first time, famously, that a young African-American woman was all over MTV.
Which was huge back then because MTV was mostly white rock bands, right?
Exactly. So Whitney, she just smashed through those racial barriers for black women in music.
Yeah.
Paved the way for artists like Rihanna later on. The whole scene would look different without her.
No question. Then came the second album, just called Whitney, in '87.
And that sealed the deal. International superstardom. Locked in. The first single, I Want to Dance with Somebody.
Absolute global hit. That song just screams 80s, doesn't it? Optimism, neon colors, that positive vibe.
Totally captures the era. And the awards followed. 1988, 3 Grammy nominations, including Album of the Year.
And she won Best Female Pop Vocal Performance for I Want to Dance with Somebody.
Yep. By then, she was one of the wealthiest black entertainers on the planet.
Right.
Only Bill Cosby and Eddie Murphy were ahead of her. The scale of her success was just astronomical.
Unimaginable.
And alongside all that success, she showed real commitment to social justice, too.
Right, like refusing to work with modeling agencies linked to apartheid South Africa.
A principled stand, even early on. And then June 11th, 1988, performing at Nelson Mandela's 70th birthday concert in London.
Wembley Stadium. Broadcast to over 1 billion people worldwide. She was using that massive platform.
She really was one of the biggest stars, doing good.
There's that fascinating story from the concert, though. The message from Mandela.
Oh, yeah, where his message was read out from prison, and he specifically mentioned her. Thank her for the pleasure her music gave the prisoners.
And when she was asked about it live on TV, her response was kind of modest, like, it's always wonderful when people in other countries take your music to your heart.
It seems like she missed the sheer historical weight of that moment, didn't she? Like she just saw it as people liking her record. Maybe a bit sheltered or just disconnected from the politics of it all.
Could be. It points to that paradox again, doesn't it?
Precisely, because even with all this global love, there was this undercurrent, this backlash starting to brew quietly.
Yeah. The Soul Train Music Awards in 1989. She got booed.
Booed and jeered when her name was called for a nomination because some black R&B fans felt she was selling out.
Making music mainly for a white audience, not being R&B enough.
Exactly. And it wasn't just a blip. It was the first big public sign of that struggle she faced, trying to appeal to everyone, but also meet the expectations of a specific group.
And her mixed ancestry, part Dutch and Native American, that played into it too.
Yeah, it contributed to that feeling some had.
Yeah.
She wasn't black enough for some, not white enough for others. Put her in this really difficult spot with identity.
An almost impossible position.
And right around then, her personal life starts hitting the headlines different. She meets R&B singer Bobby Brown in 1989.
Bobby Brown.
They got together fast, and a lot of people were just shocked. They called him the odd couple.
Yeah, the general feeling was he was corrupting poor, sweet, innocent Whitney Houston.
That was the narrative, definitely.
That feeling of, uh-oh, here's where we go south. I think a lot of people felt that when they heard Whitney and Bobby were together.
But her career still kept soaring. Third album, I'm Your Baby Tonight, in 1990. And that one felt like a response, didn't it?
Yeah, like she heard the critics saying she wasn't urban enough or tough enough, collaborating with Luther Vandross, Babyface.
Trying to toughen up the sound, make it a bit more urban, addressing that selling out thing head on almost.
Then 1991, wow, that Super Bowl performance.
Oh, just spellbinding. That cemented her as America's sweetheart forever, didn't it?
Her version of the Star-Spangled Banner during the Gulf War, still one of the greatest NFL moments ever.
Just gets up there in that red, white, and blue tracksuit. Pure youth and beauty opens her mouth. Magic, pure magic.
It really did become like a second national anthem, especially after 9/11.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But then the contrast.
In the same year she hits that patriotic peak, she marries bad boy Bobby Brown.
The shock. The scandal. It was huge. America's darling marrying him, famous for those raunchy videos, the attitude, the drug rumors.
It just felt like polar opposites attracting, massive family disapproval. Public just couldn't believe it.
And that marriage immediately brought those sexuality rumors back to the surface, didn't it? Especially since Robin Crawford left her team right after the wedding.
Right. The speculation that the marriage was maybe a front to combat the lesbian rumors, because back then
it just wouldn't fly. For America's sweetheart to be gay, especially a black lesbian woman trying to win over, conservative middle America, almost impossible.
so much pressure. Whether her feelings for Bobby were real or not, it was just this incredibly turbulent time for her under this intense microscope.
Yeah. But even with all that personal turmoil, she was about to conquer another world, movies.
The Bodyguard. Same year she married Bobby, 1992. Landed the role opposite Kevin Costner.
And that movie didn't just make her a movie star, it cemented her as an absolute icon, a legend.
But underneath that huge success, those seeds of self-destruction, they were starting to show more, weren't they? Even as her star went stratospheric.
They were. And behind the scenes of The Bodyguard, Kevin Costner later said, in his eulogy actually, that he had to fight for her to get that role.
Really? Why?
Studio execs were nervous about the interracial romance, wanted a screen test.
Yeah.
Costner insisted, famously said something like, lots of guys could play my part, but only one person could be Rachel Marin.
Wow. And he was right. Her beauty, that talent. Who else could it have been?
Nobody. And then, of course, the soundtrack, I Will Always Love You.
Oh my God, that song. Originally Dolly Parton's from 74, right? A farewell to her business partner.
Yeah, but Whitney's version,
Yeah.
it became her signature song, absolutely hers.
It starts so quiet, so breathy. Boom. That incredible voice, that range just hits you. Pure power, pure emotion.
Biggest hit she ever had. Made The Bodyguard soundtrack one of the best-selling albums of the entire 90s. That song sealed her vocal legacy.
But even with this massive movie triumph, those seeds of self-destruction were really digging in.
Yeah, the story goes, Whitney might have been a recreational drug user before Bobby, but once they were together, well, he and the drugs seemed to just take over her life.
And this is where that idea of cognitive dissonance really comes into play, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. That public image,
Yeah.
the good girl, all-American girl, heterosexual, religious, when that clashes so hard with your private reality.
Especially with that religious upbringing she had, it creates this unbearable internal conflict, can lead to dishonesty, self-deception, and fuel destructive habits.
Exactly. And the public started seeing the cracks, little warning signs. Like her skipping her own big post-concert party in London, stars were there, waiting.
And she just stayed upstairs, made people wonder, okay, what's really going on here? Maybe we don't know the whole story about Whitney Houston. That perfect image was starting to fray.
And the relationship with Bobby,
Yeah.
textbook codependency, it sounds like.
Where each one thinks the other is the only one who truly gets them, truly loves them. Whitney even said, he was my drug.
Yeah. That kind of dynamic just locks people into a destructive cycle.
Yeah.
Each one enabling the other's issues. Tragic.
Amidst all that personal chaos, her music kind of took a backseat for a while.
It did.
Yeah.
But then, after 8 years, in 1998, came My Love Is Your Love.
Right. That started as a greatest hits project.
Yeah, with a couple of new songs, but it grew into a full album. Collaborations with Missy Elliott, Roger Jerkins. It sounded different for her.
How so?
A bit funkier, more pop, definitely edgier. Her most urban-sounding album, really. You could hear Bobby Brown's influence, maybe her trying to answer those old selling-out criticisms again.
And it was a hit, wasn't it?
It was, which led to that massive record deal in 2001. Her mentor, Clive Davis, helped broker it with Arista BMG. $100 million for 6 albums.
$100 million, unheard of back then. Huge vote of confidence.
Huge. But sadly,
Yeah.
she never really lived up to that deal. The personal struggles just kept overshadowing the music.
And the warning signs got louder and more visible.
Yeah, not long after the deal, she appeared on that Michael Jackson 30th anniversary special, looking frighteningly thin.
Oh, I remember that. Reignited all the drug rumors. Her publicist tried to spin it, but it was obvious something was wrong. The physical toll was showing.
Then came that Diane Sawyer interview in 2002.
The crack is whack. Infamous.
Yeah, she was clearly struggling, deep in addiction, but fiercely denied using crack cocaine. Crack is cheap. I make too much money to ever smoke crack. Cracks is whack.
Her eyes looked glazed. Her whole attitude, it was just this public performance of denial, that cognitive dissonance laid bare.
So painful to watch.
Yeah.
2 years later, though, she finally admitted she had a drug problem, went into rehab.
But Bobby was still around, wasn't he?
Very much so. And that's the thing with addiction, right? Addicts often exist in this network. If you surround yourself with other addicts or enablers.
It can make your own behavior seem kind of normal,
Yeah.
acceptable.
Exactly. Which just paves the way for more destruction. Bobby's continued presence, even as she tried to get clean, was often seen as really detrimental.
And then they did that reality show, Being Bobby Brown, in 2005.
Probably one of the worst decisions she ever made. It was Bobby's show, but they wouldn't do it unless Whitney appeared.
And she agreed.
She did. And it was just this shocking look at their dysfunctional life. You saw Whitney seeming to try and bring herself down to his level. Maybe so he wouldn't feel threatened. It was heartbreaking, trying to normalize the chaos.
Just awful. She eventually filed for divorce, though, right? 2000.
Yep, finalized in 2007. Got custody of their daughter, Bobby Christina. But ending the marriage, it didn't magically fix the deeper issues. The drug abuse problems, they didn't just disappear with the divorce papers.
The inner demons were still there.
Still there. Her final album, I Look to You, came out in 2009. It actually went to #1.
Yeah, the studio recordings were still strong, weren't they? Showed her artistry, that fan loyalty was still there.
Absolutely. But it created this really stark, almost tragic contrast with her live performances around that time.
Because the voice, it just wasn't the same live, was it?
No. That incredible 5-octave range, it just couldn't soar anymore. There were viral clips going around of her struggling, missing the high notes. Audiences were even walking out.
Oh, that's brutal. Someone compared it to watching Eric Clapton try to play guitar now with his arthritis. Just watching the gift erode.
Devastating to witness. And what she did over the years, the smoking, cigarettes first, then reportedly marijuana laced with cocaine, it literally destroyed the very instrument that gave her everything.
It's textbook self-destruction.
It really is.
Yeah.
And some people speculate, maybe subconsciously a part of her wanted the voice destroyed, because the voice was what put her on that public stage, forced her into that persona she couldn't reconcile with her real self. Destroy the voice. Break the illusion.
Wow, that's a heavy thought, but maybe plausible given the pressure.
It's possible. She basically confirmed that struggle in that big Oprah interview in 2009.
The really memorable one. What did she say?
She said, "My life became the world, my privacy, my business." That's not. She felt she belonged to America, but couldn't really belong because they didn't know who she truly was. And she couldn't be who she needed to be accepted.
That crisis of identity, the weight of being America's sweetheart, it clearly fueled the addiction, didn't it?
Undeniably a huge factor. So when the news broke, February 2012, the mourning was just immense. Fans, Hollywood, everyone.
Her music just has that power, doesn't it? Touches your heart, touches your soul. People remembered her as my angel.
So much affection.
Yeah.
And Kevin Costner's eulogy at the funeral. Incredibly moving.
Recounting how he fought for her for The Bodyguard, telling her she'd be good enough to sing before God. Beautiful.
Yeah. It makes you think of that song, Didn't We Almost Have It All? It's almost a perfect summary of her life, isn't it?
Odd, yeah. Had the voice, the talent, the fame, but just couldn't survive everything life threw at her. Didn't have enough support, maybe.
Something was missing. But her vocal style, that became the blueprint.
Oh, totally. For a quarter of a century, young female singers, Mariah Carey, Christina Aguilera, so many others, they were all trying to sing like Whitney.
Her audience was massive, too. White, black, R&B, pop, grandmas, kids, everyone. She truly was and still is one of the greatest voices ever.
No doubt.
And her mom, Whitney Houston, she wrote this heartbreaking note in the funeral program, said that when Whitney was born, the Holy Spirit told her she wouldn't have her for very long.
Oh, wow, chillin'.
And she did. Such a profound impact, but in such a tragically short life.
It really makes you stop and think, doesn't it, about that immense pressure, maintaining that America's sweetheart image, private life, what it says about celebrity, often that human struggle. What stands out most back?